Yep.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Recovery Scene. I am your host, just a mom with a podcast, Leslie Kleppick. Make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button. And remember, please comment if you have any questions or comments. You know, Tiffany will definitely look back once I tag her in it and I get this episode up and answer any of your questions. And if you want to ask questions on the live, go for it. And at the end, I will definitely read your questions and your comments. So I gave it away just a little bit. I have Tiffany Hamilton here, and Tiffany is just blowing up. And how many followers do you have on TikTok now? 200.
I think I have 280,000 almost.
That's awesome. 280,000 followers.
Yeah.
So, and then you have an Instagram account too, right?
I do. I don't have as many followers on Instagram, but I haven't been posting as much on Instagram as I should be. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's okay. So we've got Tiffany here. She is going to share her story, and it is a powerful one. So y'all just sit back, relax, and enjoy. And Tiffany, I'm going to let you take the stage.
Okay. So I'll start from the beginning. I always start from the beginning. I'll start from, my mom was a single mom. Well, she wasn't even a single mom. She was kind of with my real dad, but my real dad was going away to work a lot. And my stepdad came into the picture, and my mom was like sexually abused as a child. She was only about 16 or 17 when she had me. So she was very young, very easily influenced. So my stepdad came into the picture, and he started like doing all the things for me, taking care of me, walking me up and down the halls at night when I was crying, and like essentially grooming my mom and grooming me and my family and my grandparents to abuse me. So he started sexually abusing me around 3 years old is when my first memory is. Something tells me that he had been doing it since I was a baby. Like something tells me that. And
Right.
I don't think I'm wrong. I just don't. And my son's yelling out. Sorry.
It's okay. It happens. Trust me, I understand.
So it started when I was like, my first memory was 3. I remember my mom saying, "Come lay in bed," and she would say, "I'm taking off my underwear," and then I would take off my underwear, and then she would say, "I'm putting my underwear back on," and then I would put my underwear back on because I thought it was this game that we played, and I guess he thought it was cute, and essentially here he is just grooming my mom again and me, to abuse me. So he would abuse me like all night on those nights. And then I remember him coming into my room alone around 5. And that's when like things got a little bit more intense. Like it wasn't just touching, it was like oral. It was a lot of oral at that point, and he would orally rape me, and that was his biggest thing. Like he always wanted to do that, and that sticks with me because it was something that I learned to enjoy the feeling of. So it got super confusing,
Right, because you're a kid.
Yeah,
you're a kid. So before anybody goes, "Oh, how could you enjoy that?" She's a child. I could teach my kids anything I wanted when they're little, and they trust me. They think like, this is what you do. And so if it feels good,
well, it doesn't seem like anything's wrong. Yeah.
At 5 years old, and it wasn't just you either. And I know for some of you, this is hard to hear, but this is, if it was hard to hear, imagine how it was to have it done. So it's not just you. This is generational.
This is generational. So my mother was sexually abused by her uncle. That's like a fact. Her uncle was also sexually abusing his daughters, who both admitted to it at times. And then they've recanted and then came back and admitted again and whatnot. And then there's talk that my great grandfather was sexually abusing my mom as well. But my grandmother was too scared to tell anyone because my grandpa had a bad temper. So there was that. And then, so my aunts also have a lot. My aunts were dating pedophiles. They all married, like they all have a kid with the same dad. All of my great aunts. And so something leads me to think that they were probably sexually abused as well. But I mean, I don't have evidence on that, but I do believe it. All of my great aunts. And then my cousins were both sexually abused by my stepfather. I walked in on him abusing them actually when I was 16 years old, and that was probably something that I struggle with a lot of guilt from because
no, but at 16, I mean, at 16 years old, you're probably you have a little more of the this is wrong kind of thing, but it's almost like it would reinforce like, oh, this is just what we do.
Yeah, in a sense it did. I remember feeling so scared for them, but thinking I can't share my story. I can't share it yet. Like I can't talk about what happened. I wasn't ready. Like I wasn't ready. I couldn't share my story regardless of what was happening to them. You know, I was 16. You know, I was just learning that I was abused. I didn't know I was abused till I was 14 years old. I didn't even know it had a name. It was actually, I remember the first time I learned about sexual abuse, it was in class, and we were talking about dysfunctional families. And it said in some dysfunctional families, children like there was something to do with children having sex with their family, and there was this whole thing, there's a whole paragraph in it, and it was in a religion book. And I remember I actually got up and started bawling my eyes out, and nobody even questioned it after, which
I mean, that must have been a blow. Like, wait a minute, this is us.
I knew that my family was dysfunctional at that moment. I didn't have any other words other than we are dysfunctional. That was it. So I thought, well, we're still normal. We're just dysfunctional normal. If that makes sense. Like I thought we were still this normal family.
Right. Your brain is gonna try and what's the word that I'm looking for? It's gonna try and justify it. It's gonna try and understand and normalize it. Like, wait, no, we're okay.
My family had been normalizing it. So, and then when you read about it, well, it's still like, well, now I'm just reading about what they've already normalized, you know?
Right.
So it was like such a normal, it didn't seem, I knew that there was something wrong with my family in that moment, but I didn't know that we were like, it was illegal or it was a big problem.
Right.
So at 16, when I seen the girls being sexually abused, I walked in on him. He was at the end of the bed. The girls were both like side by side. And one of them was naked. The other one had clothes on, and he was wearing his robe, and he always abused me in his robe. And I walked in and he came out in his robe really quickly. And it just like, I'll never, like, I'm like thinking about it, because I'll never forget the poor girls, you know, and I just, but I couldn't say anything.
Right. What are you supposed to say at 16 years old? You know, you're just still trying to wrap your mind around what's happening to you, much less, you know, what's happening to somebody else. But before I interrupted you, so he was coming in alone at 5, and then I'm assuming it just progressed from there. You know,
when I was 8, he started like penetrating me, and 8 or 9, and that's when he was like, he made like, he would like say you're ready, you know, like more or less, like he would prepare the situation for me so it didn't hurt. And and then around 8 or 9, right around that year, within those years of 8, 9, 10, my mom walked in on the abuse, and like she walked in, she opened the door. I remember she stepped back, she stood there, which felt like friggin' eternity, but it was like 5 good minutes staring, and then she shut the door and walked away. And then life, I felt, was never the same after that. Like she was very abusive toward me, and it was awful. Like she became very jealous, very angry with me.
Which is mine to me as a mother. I mean, there's definitely mental health issues going on.
Oh, definitely.
Because no normal, quote unquote, normal mother. I mean, he'd be dead on the ground.
Well, I always say, like, I think about that story all the time, and like, you literally had a perfect opportunity to end him. Like, you literally had a perfect opportunity to end him, and you didn't. Like, because that would have been self-defense, like at that point.
Right.
And she just
in defense of another.
And
Yeah.
like, I mean, me, I would have walked and grabbed a knife. Like, I don't know if I can say that, but that's what I would have done.
Right. Right. Allegedly. Hypothetically, I mean, hypothetically.
Yes, yes.
She would. She would.
But I mean, yeah, she just totally, she walked away and she never treated me the same. She was never really a good mother. She was always very cold as it was before that. But it got so much worse. Like it just felt so, I felt the animosity at that point, you know, like I felt it. And
Right. Right. And a couple of your videos, you talk about how it translated into your normal life, well, your normal life, your outside of family life. As far
like,
as, I think you made a couple videos about, you went to a party.
yes.
Yeah.
So when I was raped as a teenager. So as a teenager, oh man, I went to a party. I don't share this story a lot, and it's funny because it's a big part of my story, but it's one of those ones I still live with a lot of guilt from. I was at a party. I was looking for male attention. I'm not gonna lie about that. I never will. I was looking for male attention from boys. I was really
kind of taught to.
I was taught to. I was 15 at the time.
You.
And I ended up being kind of, I remember, like, I was drinking, so I don't remember specifically, but I remember being brought into a room with these 3 boys brought me into a room, and one raped me, and he was quite a couple years older than me. And while I thought while he was raping me, I thought that I kind of wanted it because I was looking for the attention. So I really live with a lot of guilt in that, but I do know that when I asked him to stop, because at one point I was so drunk that I fell over flat on my face, and I asked him to stop, and he didn't stop, and he just grabbed me up by my hips and kept going. And then the next day at school, he called me face plant, and everybody like made fun of me, and I couldn't even go to like my family about it because
what are they going to say?
What are they going to say? And then the next about 2 weeks later, I went to a party, or maybe a month later, I don't even know for sure, but I went to a party a couple weeks later, and the same guy and 3 other guys raped me, and they drew penises all over my body, and with marker, and I woke up on a bed with the doors wide open, naked. And I remember one time of coming to and seeing 3 guys around me, and 2 of them were drawing on me, and one was on top of me. And then I remember waking up in the morning with the penises all drawn on me. And
right. And before we get any of the comments about why would you go to the same party? Why would you go to that party again? Why would you go anywhere where they are?
I didn't know I was raped. I didn't even know it was rape.
No, and I don't care, and I've said this before, I do not care if a woman is walking down the street in high heels with nothing but electrical tape over her nipples. You do not get to sexually assault her.
No.
You can look at her like, what the heck? But you
Yeah.
get to sexually assault her. So there is no excuse. There is no, it's your fault because you, no, it's absolutely not. Absolutely.
And I mean, I didn't realize it was rape till I was about 24 years old. Because like I said, I'm still living with a ton of guilt from wanting male attention. So when you're living with that guilt, you automatically assume it's your fault, you know, and that's where I struggle, because I'm like, well, if I didn't, you know, want that, but I was a child, and this boy was 2 years older than me, you know, like, and I was drinking, and he was forcing himself on me, like, and
I mean, you had a mom that was telling you that what your stepdad was doing was your fault.
Well, she never really talked about it.
In her actions and
in her actions.
Yeah.
100% in her actions.
You said she was jealous. It was almost like, it's so like you were seducing him somehow at, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, which is insane.
No, and that's what and that's the impression my mom gave me. So,
and then when did you start masking the pain? Did it start with alcohol? Did it start with drugs? How did that come into play?
Right around that time I was raped, I was partying a lot, like a lot of partying. My mom wouldn't care. Like she would she would just let me go to parties. Like, she didn't care. She didn't care where I was. She didn't care. And when I was about 15, I started like finding ways out of the house. So that's a different topic. But when I was 14 or 15, I started experimenting with like weed. And I mean, that progressed to alcohol progressed to cocaine. Ecstasy. I started using a lot of ecstasy because that was big in my teen years. And then I remember the first time I used cocaine which is my drug of choice, was with my brother. And we were at a party. My brother and I had sex our entire childhood. Well, a good 4 or 5 years of our childhood. And we were really, really close, my brother and I. And we were at a party, and I said, we did some cocaine, and we had talked for the first time. We never really said fully what happened, but I remember saying something along the lines of like, there's some weird shit going on. There's some bad shit going on in our house. And there's like, we had some words, you know, and it was the first time I was able to really talk about my abuse. So I was instantly hooked. And, then, you know, I would do it like every so often. I would like go to a party and do it. When I came forward, when I was 21 years old, I started smoking crack, and that's when it just got out of control.
Right, because it's progressive. Addiction is progressive.
And the pain of losing my entire family that didn't believe me and didn't want to believe that I was sexually abused hurt so fucking bad that I was done. I didn't even want to live anymore.
Because you went to the authorities, didn't you?
I did. When I was 21 years old, I went to the police. I actually had him convicted. 4 other girls came forward with me.
Wow.
And yeah, he was convicted of all counts of abuse on all the girls. And yeah, and that was when I really started smoking a lot of crack. Like, that was my worst, that was one of my biggest progression, like one of the bigger progressive parts of my addiction. And the other one was when I fully isolated myself from anybody that I knew.
Right, because for those that don't know, if you don't follow Tiffany's story, your family, like even your siblings and everything, came out and said, you know, I mean, they didn't even, it wasn't so much, some of them didn't even deny it happened. They said it was your fault. Like,
well, yeah, my brother said to me, he goes, this is when I got off the phone, or when I came forward, my brother called me and he said, why would you say these things? It was so much better left unsaid. And then he said to me, if you weren't such a fucking whore, Dad wouldn't have had to touch you. And that was my mom's words. Like, that was the same shit that came out of my mom's mouth, as far as I'm concerned. Like, he was literally being groomed by my mom to say this shit. You know, my brother was only 19 years old when I came forward. He was still a kid.
Right.
You know, my sister was 15 years old. And did you know that the authorities never took her out of the fucking house? Never took her out of the house because she was almost 16.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
She ended up getting pregnant like a year later under their roof. I don't know. Who knows who the father is? I mean, like, seriously though. And the authorities never took her out of the house.
That's unbelievable. Now, and now, if you haven't had your mind blown enough, tell them whether or not your mom divorced this man who is convicted.
My mom still lives with him and supports him to this day. She's literally in my lives every day on TikTok. She actually asked me, she had the audacity to ask me recently if I slept with her husband while I was an adult. I'm not even kidding you. Like, that's the shit she asks me. She's totally lost her mind, my mother. And she lives with him, and she still lives in the exact same house he raped me in, probably has the exact same bedroom, you know, like, and now she feeds them new children. Like, they all do. All of my siblings do, and so does my mother.
Yeah, it's the cycle is how people don't understand, for lack of a better word, the brainwashing that happens.
Oh, the brainwashing. Fuck.
Yeah. There are people out there that just have that ability, and it's something else.
It was extremely brainwashing. Yeah, the brainwashing that comes with it is constant. You know, constant brainwashing. this is like your like little things, like my mom would say, I'm just trying to think to give you an example of something. Well, just for instance, like my stepfather, at 14 or 15, like I said, I wanted to go to a hockey game. I said that at 14 or 15, I started to find out that it was dysfunctional. So I knew it was somewhat wrong. So I remember I was going to a hockey game. So this was in my brain that maybe it's wrong. Okay. So I wanted to go to this hockey game. I said, I'm going. And my stepfather said, no, you're not. There's not enough room in the car. You're not going. I said, if you don't let me go, I'm telling everyone what happened and what you did to me. And he goes, you liked it. So it's just as much your fault as mine. And your mother is just going to hurt you when she finds out that you did that with me. And so that brainwashing kept me silent for another 6, 7 years.
Right.
Because I was like, he's right. I liked it. I liked the feeling, like it made sense to me. Like, I was like, yeah, no, he's right. And that was hard. That was like, kept me silent for another 6 years. I didn't even question him. I didn't even question him.
He goes to, I'm assuming he went to jail. He was convicted.
He was convicted and went to jail he got 4.5 years and served 3.
Mm-hmm. Unreal. We have so much more
12 years of my life.
Yeah. We have so much more work to do as a country. So, but that wasn't even because of how your family reacted and everything. It's like, that wasn't like an uplifting victory for you. So your addiction starts to spiral out of control. Now tell us, I guess, where did your addiction take you, I guess, after that?
Okay. So I met my husband when I was 19 years old. He came from a broken family, like of addiction, a lot of addiction in his family. They're wholesome people and they're really good people, just a lot of addiction, of addiction. And
people don't realize good people become addicted.
Yeah, they're the most wholesome family. They love deep. They just struggle with alcohol a lot.
Right.
And my husband, when I met my husband, he was selling drugs. They had a lot of poverty as well. So drugs became like a way to cope with poverty, cope with feelings. My husband was addicted to selling drugs in a small sense. So when I met my husband, he was selling drugs. I met him at a wedding, my aunt's wedding, actually my stepfather's sister's wedding.
Wow.
And he and I just met. He was like, so we were so close. I moved in right away because I was living with my mom at that time for like a couple weeks because I just wanted to I needed to get out. So I moved in with him right away. And he kind of supplied the drugs for a long time, like we would party together. We would get really high, get drunk, whatever. We would do party together all the time. And then when I was 21, I came forward. We were partying a lot. One night there wasn't any Coke left, but there was crack because he was selling. Like I said, he was selling crack. So he was like, I got this if you want to try it. Of course I tried it. I didn't give a shit anymore. So at that point, I remember I wasn't overly hooked on the crack at that point, but I liked it, but it wasn't like instant that I was that in. And then when I went away, my husband and I went away. I'll never forget this weekend. And I smoked it all weekend. And that was the weekend that just ruined me. Like I was done with it. Like I needed it all the time. And I started, smoking crack. We moved a lot. Then we isolated ourselves. We moved to a city in Newfoundland where we didn't have any family, and it was just us and our children. And we isolated ourselves, and then I started using needles. And that's when things progressed to needles. I almost I OD'd in front of my son. It's taken me with my kids, it's taken me to some dark places. And
right.
It's funny that the only thing that would keep me alive, I was fucking just destroying.
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard.
A lot of guilt for that. Which kept me using.
Yeah, so it's a horrible cycle. You feel this horrible guilt that you don't want to feel, so you use to stop this horrible guilt that you don't want to feel. And that's why it drives me nuts when people talk about how could a mother choose drugs over her children. She's not choosing anything.
No,
It's addiction.
I was in
Like there
so much
are
pain. Like I was in so much emotional pain that I couldn't possibly even look at my kids. Like I was just so damaged. Like I think about myself and I was just so hurt, you know, like my heart breaks for myself when I was in addiction because I was in pain.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
was in
and that's what people don't realize, you know. Now, are there people out there that just should not be parents? I think we've established, yes, there are.
100%.
You know, but any and you know, we said this at the beginning, any mother who is that normal mother bond with their children, it's pain because but it's the addiction that keeps screaming at you that you have to have this. And then it's the coping and the medicating and, you know, it's pain. The whole
It's
thing is pain.
pain. It's exhausting. Like addiction, I don't even wish it on my worst enemy. I don't wish it on my abuser. I say that all the time, and like I don't even wish it on him because it's
Right.
awful. It's like it's horrible. It's not life.
Mm-mm.
You're existing, and like it's so tiring. It's just so tiring. I don't miss
Exactly.
it. I don't
Now,
miss it.
when did you guys think, or what happened, I guess, that you were like, okay, things have to change?
My older son, who's 14 now, when he was in grade 7, I caught him smoking weed, and just at that point, I knew I was sending him down the same path as me. It just hit me, and I said, I'm done. Like, I can't do it anymore. And there was a couple little events, like with him, a lot with him. He was, you know, he was very angry with me. He was telling me I was pushing his feelings away. He told me that, which, you know, I'm so grateful that he was able to come to me and tell me. He said, I just can't feel because you push everything away and I'm not allowed to feel. And I was at that point I was thinking, yeah, I don't want you to feel because I don't want to feel. Like,
Right.
I don't want him to hurt because I didn't want to hurt. And all of those things, my son saved our lives. Really, he saved our lives because I got clean because he was going down the same path as me. And when I got clean, it was October 31st. I let my husband continue to use for a whole month, because I really wasn't even sure of where I was. I just was allowing him to live in my house, and he was still using fentanyl because my husband's drug of choice is fentanyl. So eventually he got in a car accident. It was a really, really bad car accident a month later. And he could have really hurt somebody. Luckily, he didn't, by the grace of God. And he that day I said to myself, you're enabling him. Like, you need to stop. So I remember, I'll never forget his swag after he got out of the hospital, right? He's all proud because, you know, him, he just doesn't give a shit. He's that kind of guy. I don't care about nothing. You know, he's walking out of the hospital room and I'm like, ooh, life isn't going to be the same anymore. I said, because now I said, you got to get out of my house. It's time to go because you can't stop. And then he was like, well, what if I go to treatment? And at that point I said, well, if you can stay sober, in the house until you go to treatment, because this was November, the end of November, and he wanted to stay with the kids, because his lapse wasn't like a crazy lapse. We were slowing down on the use, so I kind of knew he could get some clean time before he went to treatment. So I said, as long as you go to treatment in a month. So we went to treatment Christmas, Boxing Day, last year, and we've been clean ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he went into treatment. Yeah, he's been clean since November, I think 25th or 24th or something, and I'm October 31st. So our kids saved our lives, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's really cool. And he's awesome. When I see him, he is one of those rare husbands that you can talk into doing TikToks with you.
He is like all about, he's such a happy person. Like, anybody who meets my husband says, like, he's such a happy, like, he's never in a mood. Like, he'll always have this like happy-go-lucky, like easygoing, very, like, he's hyper as hell. Like, he's got like severe ADHD, which I think led him to his addiction.
Probably.
Yeah.
Join the club.
Yeah, he's like always on like speed, like he's just like woo, like. But I love that about him. You know what? Like I struggle with like disassociation, and something I'm learning in our recovery is that like my disassociation and like my like I get like when I get down, I'm really lazy and like I don't want to move. And he will bring me up, like he'll be like, let's go to the gym, let's go snowboarding, let's get outside and go for a walk. Like he's so energetic that it balances us out in a good way. And then I'm like, okay, calm down, we can chill now.
Right.
I think we're doing good in our recovery together, finally.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely want, one day if he's willing just to have both of you on and, just talk about what it's like to, be a couple in recovery together. I think
No,
it'd be awesome.
He'd be willing to.
Yeah, that would be really cool. So if you could tell somebody, whether it's a young man or a young woman, what do you want to leave them with?
It's okay to share your story. Like that one is big for me. Don't let anyone gaslight you into believing that what you're saying isn't the truth. That's a big one for me. I have a few. If there's any little girls or boys who are being sexually abused right now, please wipe after they abuse you and put it in a rag, and you can give it to the police, and that's evidence.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm busy.
Yeah, that's Tiffany, thank you so much for just being willing to come on here and share your story with us and just being so open. I mean, it can't be an easy story to tell because it's not an easy story to listen to.
No, it's getting easier the more I share it. And I mean, that's also something I wanted to share with people, is that the more we tell it, the easier it gets.
Right.
And the more we feel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And family finds you. Family isn't always blood.
No.
Your family your real family will find you, and
I've met this woman on TikTok. And she's like a mother to me. She's like helping me apply for school. She's helped my kids, been to meetings for the school with my kids. Like she's become.
That's awesome.
And she lives so close, and we met through TikTok, and like I found somebody that like I have a role model, like I have a role model that I never had in my life.
Right. Mm-hmm. See, that's really cool. So, I mean, social media, not all bad.
No, not all bad.
There is good out there, but if they want to find you, let's say somebody, wants to reach out, or maybe they just want to follow your story, where can they find you? What are your names?
Share me. I'm at Never Alone Support on TikTok, at Never Alone Support on Instagram, and you can find me on Facebook as Tiffany Hamilton.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany. I really appreciate it. That's going to do it for this episode of The Recovery Scene. Thank you all so much for watching. Those of you on the live, we greatly appreciate you being there. And remember, addiction isn't pretty, but recovery is beautiful. I'm just a mom with a podcast, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.